where we left in the last class. So we had been discussing actually the development of the electrical dynamics. Actually, the focus of this part of our lecture is basically to look for, ultimately we will be looking for the derivation of the third order model for a synchronous machine. Okay. Before that, we derived the classical model, which is the second order model. So in addition to that, we will be looking for increasing the order of the model actually, okay, increasing the dynamics of the model. And for doing that, we started the derivation. We looked at the simplified schematic of the synchronous machine, where we only had the field winding along the D axis and three sets of stator windings, the A axis, B axis, and C axis. And then we went through some more complex schematics of synchronous machine, where we introduced two more sets of damper windings along the Q axis and one additional set of windings along the direct axis. And then we went through the coil representation. Okay, so this slide gave us the idea of the schematic, the cross-sectional view of the situation of the coils and the currents flowing through the coils. And in this slide, we introduced the physical coils, how they might look like once they are introduced into the system, into the modeling of the system. Then we covered the classification, different classifications that we might come up.
Sir, I had a question.
Yeah, sure.
So why were sir model 3.0, 3.1, 3.2 not possible, sir? Actually, I couldn't get it, sir.
Okay, actually it was not discussed in detail. Why it's not possible? Because let's say if we take any of the models, let's say 3.0, okay? 3.0 over here.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean? Physically, what does that mean? That means you have three sets of coils here, okay, along the D axis. So that means you must have at least the field winding. Then you have the damper coil, and you also have another set of damper coil along the D axis, okay? And no other coils are present along the Q axis. That would be 3.0, okay? But according to the classification, it says that, well, that's not possible, okay? It's not allowed to model the system in this manner. Now come to your question, why is it not possible? There are actually two ways to explain the presence of the damper coils in the synchronous machine. Okay, there are two ways. I only discussed one of the ways, and that is to say, I said, well, in general, there are damper windings or amortiguer windings, okay, or the damper coils placed at these locations in the pole faces. So one of the ways is to think the coils to be all the coils, treat all the coils to be physical coils. Okay, this is what I actually said in the last class. I only covered these things. So we assume that, well, all of the coils that we are considering, be it the stator coil AA dash, be it the BB dash, or be it the CC dash, all of these coils, along with the field coils and these damper coils, all of these coils are physical coils, okay? So that means they are in real world. So these are real world coils, okay? They are not any sort of, I mean, effect due to modeling some phenomena happening inside the machine, okay? They are real world coils, real world coils. So if that is the case, then this classification, whatever we said, probably you might go for any of these. But if I try to mimic what actually happens inside the machine, That is, probably you will go for only one set of damper coils. If you try to represent one set of real world coils, physical coils along the damper winding, I mean, in terms of the damper windings, probably you will go for only one set of damper coils. And D axis and Q axis, they actually comes in pairs. Okay. I mean, once there is the concept of D axis, automatically the Q axis comes there. Of course, for, you should say, the salient pole machines. Okay. So the damper coils are not only modeled for representing the real world coils. This is the main thing. Whatever I just said, that is the main thing. The damper coils are not only modeled for representing the presence of the real coils inside the machine. Besides that, the damper coils also takes into account the phenomena of your induced voltage in the rotor coils or on the rotor coils, on the rotor core itself. Okay, on the rotor cores itself. Remember, we talked about coils. Coils means, okay, this is how, let me draw it separately. It is actually, it will take some time to, so you have to be patient. Okay, you have to be patient. And it's a little bit advanced thing, little bit advanced. Okay, so let's say these are the three coils in your stator winding. Okay. And this is the prime mover. You are rotating the rotor with the help of the prime mover. These are the stator coils. And let's say we talk about only the physical coils for the timing. Let's say these are the physical coils, okay? And none of the damper coils are physically present. That means you have not included any amortisier winding. Extra, I mean, in practice, there are no amortisier coils inside the machines, okay? So there are no real world damper coils. There are no real world damper coils in this machine, whatever I have drawn here, the machine that I have drawn here. So this is FD and this is FD dash. So now the thing that I'm talking about, that will give you some idea about how you might, or why it might be necessary to actually represent damper coils other than real world damper coils. Okay, why you might need to model them like 1Q and 1Q dash, 2Q and 1D and 1D dash. So these damper coils, why are they there? Okay, so once your machine, okay, or as long as your machine is moving at synchronous speed, omega synchronous, okay, there are no induced effect on your damper coils, even if it were there, right? Even if it were there were some damper coils in practice, in real world. As long as your system, so your rotor is moving at synchronous speed, there would be no induced torque on the rotor body. Okay. But as soon as there is any dynamics, means the system is not moving at a steady state, means your omega synchronous or omega rotor is no more equal to omega synchronous. Okay. So as soon as this is the case, what will happen now? Your field coils, these field coils, as well as these rotor core, remember this is the core. The field coil itself, as well as the rotor core, they will sense that there is some slip, omega S minus omega R. So your core, as well as your fields, rotor fields, they will sense that, well, now it is moving at some slip. Either it is lagging than omega S or it is leading than omega S, because it is dynamic. So actually the omega R, under transient scenario, omega R would be moving something like this. Okay. And then probably if the system is stable, it will come back. So this is omega R. Sorry, this is omega, the straight line, let me draw it, different line, the straight line here, the straight line this is omega s, the fixed value of synchronous speed. However, this is your omega r. So there, during transient, there will be some deviation of omega r from omega s. Okay. Due to that, this rotor body itself, the rotor core, as well as the rotor field coil, all of them will sense omega r minus omega s. And due to that, there will be induced voltages on the core as well as on the field coils, on the core as well as on the field coils. To represent this phenomena, during the transient and subtransient periods. You remember there are 3 periods. Any machine, any synchronous machine or any machine, if you try to model its dynamics, let's say switching dynamics or any kind of fault dynamics, there are 3 periods. Do you remember? There is subtransient period. There is transient period. Probably in your power system 1 course, probably it has been discussed, or maybe machine 2 course, and steady state period. So these are the 3 periods. So if I try to help you out in remembering how did it look like, probably you will remember something like, do you remember this thing? At the very early part of the transient, there is very high. Yeah. So there is subtransient, then there is transient, and then ultimately these dynamics ceases, and ultimately you have some steady value, right? So at the very beginning, there is subtransient period, there is very high current. Why the current is very high at the very beginning? Yeah, because the associated reactance, we call it XD double dash, then probably here it is XD dash, and here during the steady state that is XD. So you see the reactance is actually changing. Okay, the reactance is changing. We are treating them as different periods. So actually to model these phenomena, okay, subtransient dynamics, transient dynamics, and steady state dynamics, we generally use these fictitious representation of damper coils. Okay, this is the final answer. We actually model, even if there are no physical coils, you may end up with some modeled effect of these things: subtransient effect, transient effect, and steady state effect. Okay, and that's why actually these numbers might vary. And when you include one set of damper coil, then actually another set of damper coil comes. It depends in which axis you are actually trying to capture the dynamics, along which axis you are trying to capture the dynamics. Okay, if you only want to capture the dynamics along the d axis, so it is probably we start with 1D. Okay, if you want to capture the dynamics on D along the d axis and q axis, you come up with 1D and 1Q, and so on. Okay, so when you go with 2D and 2Q, you are actually able, that means when you go for 3.3, you are actually able to capture the subtransient dynamics both along the d axis as well the q axis. Probably the answer is a little bit long, but actually because there was a question, so I had to go through it. So let me summarize. You might have physical coils, damper windings. You might have no physical damper windings in your system. Okay, irrespective of whether it is a physical coil or I should say, depending on whether there are some physical damper coils or not, you have to model the effects of these things. Okay, subtransient dynamics, transient dynamics, or steady state situation of the machine. So to capture these things, okay, subtransient effects and transient effects, you have to include these things: 1D, 1Q, and 2D, 2Q, etc. And these numbers varies probably depending on whether you have some whether you also have some real world damper coils besides the modeled effect. Okay, besides the model effect of the eddy current flows or the induced voltages through your rotor coils. Okay. The one who asked the question, is it clear? Little bit?
Yes, sir, it is clear, sir.
Okay. So it's actually, in short, you can say it is basically to capture, we actually vary the numbers. The number is varied depending on what is your target. Okay, are you going for a much detailed model? Do you want to capture the subtransient effects or not? Are you only satisfied with the transient dynamics or not? Along which axis you are actually looking for the effects. So depending on that, you actually, this number varies. And mostly they come in pairs. Okay, 1D and D and Q, they actually comes in pairs. Okay. So let's move on. So that's why you might see probably 3.0. It is actually, that means you are only focusing on D axis and the pair, Q axis pair is not there. Okay. So if you introduce 1D, better to introduce 1Q, but again, it depends which one, which set of, or which phenomena actually, which dynamic phenomena you are trying to capture. And interestingly, okay, let's leave it here. Okay, let's leave it here. Probably it will take much time if I go further. Okay, so then we looked into the flux linkage equations, because there are we are actually going for the 2.2. Okay, the 2.2 model we are focusing on. So besides the stator coils, there will be 4 coils. Okay, 1 field winding along the D axis, 1 damper winding along the D axis, and 2 damper windings along the Q axis. So 4 sets of coil placed on the rotor. Either in real world they are there, or they might be required for modeling some phenomena, some dynamic phenomena. And there are 3 sets of stator coils. So remember, the stator coils are always real, but the rotor coils, among the rotor, these 4 sets of rotor coils that we are talking about, it might be physical, it might not be physical, it might be hypothetically modeled. Okay, but the field winding, at least the field winding is real. So we have the stator winding voltage equation. We applied the KVL and we took the minus sign because we told that the convention that we will be following throughout the modeling part is to take the current going into the coil as positive and current coming out from the coil as negative. So that's why the stator winding, because we are trying to model the generator, synchronous generator, that's why the stator coils will be carrying current out of the coils. So that's why they have the negative sign. And similarly, we wrote the equations for the rotor winding. We looked into the flux linkage equations. So there will be 7 currents in the 7 coils, I, IB, IC along the stator coils, and IFD, I1D, 1Q, and 2Q. And these were the vector representations. Similarly, we wrote down the equations for the rotor winding flux linkage equations, as well as the vector representation for that. Then we actually ended the class with the discussion of the stator flux permeance. Okay, and we found that that varies in a sinusoidal fashion, where the maximum value of this stator flux permeance occurs at theta equals to 0 degree, and it again reaches the maximum at 180 degree and at 90 degrees and 270 degrees in one's complete rotation. The flux of the flux permeance reaches the peak value twice and reaches the minimum value twice. So that's why it was a function of twice of the rotor position theta. And there was some average value minimum. There was some average value because the minimum was never 0. So this was the average value. So let's start then some new things today, that is the inductance calculation steps. So these are the steps. First of all, for calculating the inductance, we will go for calculating the MMF, okay, along the desired axis. So the desired axis could be either along the A axis or the B axis or the C axis. We'll see how we deal with that. And the MMF in general, from magnetic circuit relationship, we know that the MMF formula is N multiplied by I. What is N and I here?
It's the number of turns.
N is the number of turn in that coil, and I is the amount of current flowing through that coil. Good. So then we will split, because remember we have now two axes, D and Q. Okay, two axes. So we will split those MMFs. Okay, first we are calculating the MMF along our stator axis. Then we are bringing them, we are decomposing them along the DQ axis to get the two components of the MMF, calculated MMF, FD and FQ. So at FD and FQ could be either along A axis. Let's say we are looking along the MMF for the A axis. So it would be FAD and FAQ, like that, FBD and FBQ, and so on. So as we saw that the permeance that varies actually, okay, along the D axis we get some sort of permeance, along the Q axis the permeance is different than the D axis because of the air gap, difference in air gap. So these MMFs, FD and FQ, they will certainly travel through different permeances, okay. They will be established through different magnetic paths having PD, having permeances PD and PQ. So then we will calculate the fluxes. So from MMF we are coming to the flux, okay. So from MMF we will be calculating the fluxes along the DQ axis, and the flux is related with the permeance in this manner. Basically the original formula that you might remember is F equals the MMF equals R phi. Okay, this is F, this is your R. So F could be Ni or F could be R phi. So from there we can write phi over P, where P is the inverse of your reluctance. So phi is equal to P multiplied by F. So this is what we are talking about. F equals to, sorry, phi equals to F into P. Then what we will do once you get the flux along the D and Q axis, so now we will calculate their components. Okay, so we'll bring them back from D and Q, we will bring them back. We'll calculate their components along the A or B or C axis from where we started actually. Okay, and once we do that, then we calculate the inductance, desired inductance. Okay, and this is the inductance and flux linkage relationship. L equals lambda over I, because lambda equals to Li. That is another way to calculate your flux linkage. So this is how we will end up, how we'll end our calculation of L. Now remember that L could be self-inductance, okay, between stator to stator coils, okay. So L could be LAB, between stator to stator coil, okay. L could be, so what I mean is this, you could have LAA. So this is a stator to stator self-inductance, right? You could have LAB. What is that?
Mutual inductance.
Mutual inductance between stator A coil and B coil. So that's a mutual. LBC, same, mutual between stator to stator. You could have LAFD. What is that?
Stator to rotor.
Yeah, that is the stator to rotor mutual inductance, and so on. Okay. So we will end up with different sorts of inductances. So that's why there is notation IJ. Okay. So don't get confused. This is nothing but to represent different sorts of combinations of inductance between stator and stator rotor. So let's start. Now probably you will need a little bit of trigonometric. You need to recall a little bit of trigonometry to go through this set of calculations. Okay, so let's start. So what was the first step? The first step was to calculate the MMF along any stator axis. So let's take Okay, so first of all, we are trying to calculate LAA. Okay, so that is the stator self-inductance, one of them. So similarly, you could have LBB and you could have LCC. So we are taking only one of them as an example. So LAA, for doing that, let's calculate the MMF along the A axis. So FA, what would be that? NI, okay? NA, number of turns in the A axis and current flowing through the A axis. So FA would be established along the A axis. So you see the red arrow here, FA along the A axis. So that is the direction of FA, the red one, the large red one. Then the second step was to split the FA along the D axis and the Q axis. So we split the FA. So this is any position of rotor, okay? Any certain instance where, let's say, the rotor is at position theta s. Don't get confused. Theta s is nothing but representing that the theta is measured with respect to some stationary frame. Okay, that is the same as theta m. Okay, we used earlier. So theta s and theta m are same. You can also call it theta m. S here represents nothing but it is the angle measured with respect to some stationary frame, not a rotating frame. So now we are thinking that, well, at this position, at any position theta s of the rotor, how would the calculation go forward? Okay, so let's say we are looking for FAD, calculation of FAD. That is the D component of the MMF along the A axis. So what would be FAD? So you know the angle theta. So the angle theta is actually measured with respect in between the D axis of the machine and the A axis of the machine. Okay. So FAD would be what? Simply FA, its cosine component, right? FA cosine theta s. So that is FAD. What would be FAQ? How much is this angle between Q axis and D axis?
90
degrees.
This is 90 degree. So we can write FAQ is FA cosine theta s plus 90. Can we? Means this whole angle, right? FAQ. You can also write in terms of sine directly, but I'm going in more straightforward manner. Okay. So what would be FAQ? FAQ would be the cosine component of FA, which is to be calculated at this angle, right? So that is theta s plus 90. Okay. So cosine theta s plus 90 is how much? Minus sine theta s. Okay. So this is what we have written here. Any question? So you have to keep track of the angles very carefully. Keep track of the angles very carefully. No question. Okay, so let's move forward. So we have FAD and FAQ already calculated. Next, what is the target? We have to calculate the flux along those two axes. Okay. So what was the flux relation that we just mentioned? The flux in general is P multiplied by F. Okay. P multiplied by F. So we are looking for phi AAD. So we have to take out PD. Remember, if you are trying to calculate the flux along D axis, so that flux would be experiencing this much of permeance. Okay, the permeance along the D axis, and that is FAD. Okay, we call it phi AAD. So that is FAD into PD. Similarly, phi AAQ would be FAQ into PQ. Okay. So then what our next step is to bring the components, calculate the components of these fluxes. Okay. So phi AAD, you see the direction, phi AAD is along the D axis and phi AAQ is along the Q axis. But we need phi AA to calculate LAA. So what we do, we bring back the component of phi A. We calculate the component of phi AAQ along A axis and the component of phi AAD along A axis. And then we add them up. Okay, add up the components. Vector addition of these two components will give us phi AA. So this is what we are doing. So this is basically phi AAD. Component of phi AAD. This is basically the component of phi AAD along A-axis. So you may write it like this: component of phi AAD along A-axis, and this whole thing is the component of AAQ, phi AAQ, again along the A-axis. Okay. So now, can you calculate this? Again, trigonometry. So phi AAD is along the D-axis. You need the component of phi AAD along this A-axis. What is the angle between them? Again, theta s, right?
Yes, sir.
So this would be simply phi AAD, this phi AAD multiplied by cosine of theta s. So you see FADPD. What is FADPD? This is phi AAD, right? And the component of phi AAD along axis is phi AAD multiplied by cosine theta s. So that is FADPD multiplied by cosine theta s. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, remember we have to add vectorially the components. Okay, vector addition of phi AAD component and phi AAQ component along the A-axis. Try to understand this because there will be one assignment coming up soon on some of the inductance calculations. Okay, please try to follow. So what about phi AAQ? Component of phi AAQ along A-axis. What is the angle? Again, we just go back in this direction. The angle is 90 plus theta s, right? So phi AAQ, you will have phi AAQ A. It is nothing but phi AAQ cosine. What is the angle? 90 plus theta s. That's it. So what do you get? You replace phi AAQ. What is phi AAQ? You have this here. FAQ, PQ. Then cosine 90 plus theta s would be minus. Done. Okay. That's why there is a minus sign. Because of this minus sign. Okay. So this is how you bring the components. You calculate the components of phi AAD and phi AAQ along this A-axis. You add them up in a vectorially. You add them up and then you get phi AA. Okay. Now you go a little bit inside into this expression: FADPD cosine theta s, FAQ PQ sine theta s. So you see there is cosine theta s and sine theta s. There is FADPD, FAQ PQ. What is FAD and what is FA actually? We see FAD is FA cosine theta s. So there is some shortcut actually, because I can't explain everything in the class, but I can't write actually everything here. It will take too much space, but I can explain. So FAD, you replace FAD by this, okay? FA cosine theta s, right?
Yes, sir.
What is FA again? FA is NAIA. So this is the NAIA after replacing everything. And you are left with cosine theta s, PD cosine theta s, right? If you replace this, cosine theta s, PD cosine theta s. So that will give you PD cosine square theta s multiplied by NAIA. If I replace everything, what do I get? If I replace everything, I get something like this. Let me write it here. So I have to replace FAD first. What is FAD? FA cosine theta s. Then I will replace FA also. So what do I get? NAIA
Cosine square theta s.
cosine square theta s. Very good. Then what do I get? Minus FAQ. So minus FAQ, oh, there is some PD. Okay, you missed the PD here. There is some PD. Okay, there is some PD also. So this is the PD. What is minus FAQ? Minus FAQ is that minus and this minus will get cancelled out. So you get a plus. You have PQ. So you keep the PQ at the beginning. Then there is sine theta s, there is sine theta s. So that would become sine square theta s, but we also have NAIA. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
So that would be sine square theta s. So you apply your trigonometric knowledge, previous trigonometry knowledge. So you take this NAIA out. Okay, NAIA, you take it common. You include a half with that because there is cosine square theta, there is sine square theta. So make it 2 cosine square theta and 2 sine square theta. And you continue with the calculation. Okay, so you should end up with this. Okay, I am not going any further because that is basic calculation. So you'll see that there will be 2 components when you take this cosine square theta and make it 1 minus cos twice theta and 1 plus cos twice theta, something like that. Using that trigonometric identity, you will end up something like this. You'll end up with something like this. Okay, so you have NAIA. Then you will have some portion of the expression where you have summation of PD and PQ divided by 2, and some other portion of the expression will be converted to the subtraction of PD and PQ and divided by 2, and there is cosine of 2 theta s. Okay, so this is your phi AA. You need LAA, that is the target. So what to do? You have to divide lambda AA divided by IA. IA is simply the current. What is lambda? Lambda A is Ni. Okay, lambda is N phi. Lambda is N phi over IA. That is the formula. Let me check. Yeah, lambda is N phi over I. So that is the formula. So that is the flux linkage. Okay, that is the flux linkage. Lambda equals N phi. And then you see there is IA there. Okay, at the denominator. There is IA at the numerator, in the numerator part. So those IAs will be cancelled out, and you will be left. There is NA there in the phi A expression, and there is another NA here in the LAA equation. So they will become NA squared, and the remaining part will be there. So the final expression for LAA would be NA squared PD plus PQ over 2 plus NA squared PD minus PQ over 2 cosine of 2 theta s. For simplicity in representation, we will now assume that this first part is LAA 0, and the second part we are taking it as 0 because we see that, well, the first part is actually not depending upon the rotor position, right? This part is independent of the rotor position, so we call it LAA 0, some constant which is not a function of theta s. So the LAA, the inductance, comprises of 2 components. One is independent of the rotor position, that is LAA 0, and one is depending upon the theta position, that is LAA peak cosine theta s. So this thing, NA squared PD minus PQ over 2, is treated as LAAP and multiplied by cosine 2 theta s. So that is the end of the derivation for LAA. Any confusion? Just do it once, probably. Yeah, if you just do it once, probably your confusions will be clear. If you do it once by yourself, then inshallah, if there is any confusion, it will be cleared. Okay, because there are some component calculations. Sometimes we are going from here to there, and then we are coming back from there to here. So that is a little tricky part here. Other than that, it is very simple. Now, if it is LAB, so let's go through LAB. That is the mutual inductance calculation for between the stator to stator coils. So we start with some MMF calculation. So the MMF would be along the B axis, So that is FB NB into IB. Now what is FBD? What is FBD? So now the angle between A and B, okay, we are representing now the angles. So theta S remains as theta S. Remember, you can't change the rotor position. While calculating the inductances, keep it at some fixed position and then you try to calculate all the inductances, because you see inductance actually changes from position to position. Okay, so we are keeping the rotor position where it is, and then we are trying to calculate the different inductances. Okay. So FB is NBIB, FBD. What is FBD? FBD would be the component of FB along the D axis. So you need this angle, right? This is your FB, the red line along the B axis. You need to calculate FBD along the D axis. So you need to calculate this angle. What is this angle? The whole thing is 120. This small part is theta. So what is this? Right? Do you get it? This is, the whole thing is 120. Why 120? Because it is a balanced system. So did you get the angle that I just mentioned?
Yes, sir.
So this is your the angle that we are looking for, and the whole angle is 120 degree between A axis and B axis. 120 degree. Why it's 120 degree?
Sir, from stator A to B depends 120 degree.
Because it's a balanced system. Okay, because we are assuming it to be a balanced system, that's why it should be 120 degree. A to B, B to C, C to A, all should be 120 degree. And this is your theta S, so this angle should be 120 minus theta S. So now you can easily calculate FBD, which is the cosine component of FB along the D axis. So that would be FB cosine of this angle, right? And as you know, cosine theta and cosine minus theta are same. Cosine of minus theta is equal to the cosine theta. So we are using that identity to make it look like this. The actual angle is 120 minus theta S. But that is actually specifically for this position. Theta S has every chance to go beyond 120 degree, right or not? This 120 degree will remain fixed. It will not change. But theta S, when the rotor moves beyond the B axis, when the D axis of the rotor moves beyond the B axis, what would be theta S? Theta S, in that case, it would be more than 120 degree, isn't it? Because theta S was 0 along this line. Theta S would be exactly 120 degree along this line. So beyond this line, theta S would be more than 120 degree. So just to make it generalized, just to make this representation in a generalized manner, we are not using 120 minus theta, rather we are using theta S minus 120. That's it, nothing else. You can also you can also leave with 120 minus theta, no problem. But in the book, they are following theta S minus 120, so we'll stay with them. But if you want to keep 120 minus theta, there is no problem. So what would be FBQ? FBQ would be simply, so this is FB and this would be your FBQ. Okay, so if this component is your sine component, sorry, the cosine component is this, so this should be the sine component. So FBQ would be simply FB sine, what is the angle? The angle is 120 minus, the angle is 120 minus theta S, right? But we are interested in the angle theta S minus 120. That's why you see there's a minus sign, because we have taken the reverse angle. So this minus sign is coming due to the fact that sine of theta is minus sine of minus theta. Okay, oh, just I should write in this manner, sine of minus theta is minus of sine theta. Okay. So that's the identity that is used here. So FBQ itself is positive here, but because we are playing with the angle, we want to represent it in terms of theta minus 120. That's why there is a minus sign. So this is how we calculate FBD and FBQ at first. Then we calculate the flux phi BAD and phi BAQ. So what would be the flux? The flux would be simply this MMF multiplied by the respective permeance. So if it is the flux is along the D axis, you have to take the respective permeance along the D axis. If flux is along the Q axis, you have to take the respective permeance along the Q axis. So you calculate phi BAD and phi BAQ in this manner. Then phi BA. So what would be phi BA? Okay, before that, let's look into the locations of or directions of phi BAD and phi BAQ. So you see the blue lines. This is phi BAD along the D axis, and this is phi BAQ along the Q axis. Now we have to bring the components, calculate the components of BAD and BAQ along the A axis. So that would be phi BA. Okay, and we add them up vectorially. We add them up. So again, what is this angle? What is this angle? So let's try to make the angles now. So we are going for calculating phi BA. So phi BAD and phi BA, what is the relation in angles? So this is your phi BAD, and phi BA would be calculated along the axis. So what is the angle? Theta S again. So this is cosine theta S. Okay, done. Phi BAQ, calculate the component along the axis. What is the angle? 90 plus theta S, right? And because of that plus, you take the cosine component. Because of this 90 plus theta S cosine of that, you have minus sine. Like in the previous case, this part is same. This part cosine theta S and minus sine theta S is the same as the part we discussed in LAA in the previous slide. And then you just do whatever we did in the last slide. You replace everything, whatever you know. So FB, you replace NBIB here. Here, you bring them there. So it would be cosine theta S multiplied by cosine theta S minus 120. In this part, it would be sine theta S multiplied by sine theta minus 120. So it would be sine A sine B cos A cos B, right? Not squared. Now it would be sine A sine B cos A cos B. You use the trigonometric identity, you simplify them, you will reach here. Okay, I'm not going into the detail anymore for this one. So then LAB, you calculate, once you get the flux, you calculate the inductance, and that is NA phi BA over IB. You have one IB here in the phi BA. Inside phi BA, you have another IB in the denominator. So IB, this IB and this IB will be cancelled out. And you will be left with something like this. And you see this one, NA, we have NA and B now, because you have A axis and B axis mixture. Okay. But what we can do, can we assume it like this? What do you think? Is this valid? Number of turns in the A axis, number of turns of coils, number of turns of coils in the B axis, and number of turns in coils in the C axis, are they same or not in a single machine?
Yes, sir, same.
They are same because it's a balanced system. So that should induce same voltage. Of course, 120 degree out of phase, but the magnitude of the voltage depends on this number of turns. So we assume that NA equals to NB equals to NC. So in that manner, we can say this is same as NA squared. Okay. Or N squared. We can also use simply N. It's the same. So now you see it is N squared PD plus PD plus PQ over 4. So you have minus NA squared PD plus PQ over 4. and we are representing it in terms of LAA0. What was LAA0? Let's see. It is NA squared PD plus PQ over 2. So the difference is only in this minus sign here, and there's one additional half. So that is minus half LAA0. That first part is done. Then again, this would be NA squared PD minus PQ over 2. We compare it with the previous expression. You see NA squared PD minus PQ over 2 for LAA, and we took it as LAAP. So that is same as LAAP because NA is equals to NB. And then cosine 2 theta is minus 120. So this is the expression of LAB, okay, stator to stator mutual inductance, right? Let's move forward. Can you calculate LAC? Let's see whether I have calculated it or not. In the next slide, what is waiting for us? Let's see. LAA done, AB done. What about LAC? Probably, okay, I have done it. So just go through it, okay? Just go through it. And if you have any confusion, we can discuss it later on. Okay, but in the similar manner, just you have to keep track of the angles between the axes, and that will be sufficient to complete this calculation in this slide. Okay, nothing special. On the final expression that you would get is again minus half LA0 L plus LAP cosine. Now it is 2 theta s plus 120 degree. Okay, so that is LAC. So once you are done with LAA, AB, and AC, we are in a position now to calculate the whole stator to stator inductance matrix. So the whole matrix here, 3 by 3, is basically LSS. The stator to stator inductance matrix, that actually is, that one is actually this one, okay? LAA, LAB, LAC, all these 9 components are, you should be able to calculate. Now the things or the part of the calculations that is left, what I have only shown is this. Inside this big matrix, there are 9 elements. I have only shown LAA, LAB, and LAC. Now, can anyone tell, once you calculate LAB, can you say what is LBA? And again, once you calculate LAC, can you say what is LCA? Let's say you have 3 sets of coils, okay? Stator coils. You are trying to calculate the mutual inductance between these 2 coils. So if you look at the mutual inductance standing from here, if you try to calculate from here to here, if you look into that, if you say find LAB, let's say this is coil A, this is coil B, what you get is LAB, right? Instead of that, if you stand here and look from here to here, what do you get? LBA, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, are they same?
Magnitude same, but direction is different.
No. I'm talking about the expression, final expression.
Same.
They should be same. Okay, they should be same. So once you get LAB, you are actually done with LBA. That's the beauty of this matrix. Okay, it's a symmetric matrix. This sort of matrices are called symmetric matrices because there is symmetry across the diagonal. Okay, so if you leave out the diagonal, then you are in a symmetric world. If you look at one side of the diagonal, whatever you find, if you look at the other side of the diagonal, you find the same thing. So that's the symmetric matrix. So LAB we have shown, then you should be able, that is same as LBA. LAC we have shown, so LCA is also done. So your job is to calculate now LBC, LBB. Okay, once you are done with LBC, then LCB is also done. These are same, they should be same. Okay, LBC and LCA mean LCB means this one. So this is coil C, they should be same. Okay, So you have to calculate LBB, LCC, and LCA. Okay, so I have shown you 3. Your job is to calculate the remaining 3. That is assignment number 1. Okay, understood? What is the assignment? Any confusion with the assignment? And that is, of course, you have to do it through hand calculation. Okay, you have to show all the calculation steps.
আরেকবার যদি বলতেন স্যার অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট
Okay, okay, no problem. No problem. I will say again. What I said is, let's start from here. I have calculated LAA. Okay. So that means this one is done. Okay, LAA is done. I have shown the calculation for LAB. So if we look into the big matrix, LAB is done. Then I said, well, once you are done with LAB, it means you are done with LBA. Okay. Then LAC, it's shown here. The detail is shown here. So that means LAC is done. So LCA is also done. So what's left? The things which are left, that should be done by you. So LBB is the part of the assignment. Number 1, calculation of LBB, calculation of LCC, and calculation of LBC. These 3, because LBC and LCB are same. So you calculate, you show the steps with a diagram. LBB, you show the steps of calculating LCC with the diagram, and you show the calculation steps of LBC. Find out the final derivation for LBC. Clear? So
Yes,
this
sir.
is your assignment number 1. When will you submit? Should there be any deadline or open submission? Throughout the semester? I think no, that should not be open-ended. There should be some closing.
Sir, before mid.
Actually, probably before mid, there might be another assignment. I'm not sure. I don't know how far I may go. Okay, I will keep it up to before mid. Okay, before mid. So
Okay,
whatever
sir.
assignments I give before mid, the deadline will be before mid. Okay, agreed?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on.
I have a question.
Yeah,
sir.
sure. Which part? Which
Sir,
slide?
with the finding LAB.
LAB. Okay,
No,
LAB.
not
Yeah.
LAB, yes. Sir, FBQ, here we use an angle 120 minus theta s.
Okay, I'm explaining again. This is the phasor. Okay, this is the phasor FB.
Okay.
You are looking for 2 components. First component is this, right? FBD.
Yeah.
Any confusion here?
No, sir. No, sir.
What is the angle?
It's clear.
The angle between this and this. What is the angle? The whole angle here,
120
120. You reduce theta s from that. You
minus
deduct.
theta s. Sir,
Yeah. So that is 120 minus theta s. Okay. 120 minus theta s. Done. So
yes, sir.
simply, what is FBD? FBD is FB cosine of this angle, right? Now we
Yes, sir.
said, well, because theta s can go beyond 120 degree through its one rotation. Okay, throughout its rotation, there is chance, of course, it will go beyond 120 degrees. So we want to make this angle, we want to represent this angle not in this manner, rather in this manner. Okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay, I'm coming to your point. So that's what we did. We simply made it FB cosine. Theta is minus 120 because cosine minus theta is same as cosine theta. So next, FBQ. What would be FBQ? Simply, if this is your cosine component, this should be your sine component of the same angle, right? Simply to say, if you have a phasor, this is your phasor FB. Okay, this is some angle, and this is FBD. So this should be FBQ, right? Now, what is this angle? This angle, for our case, it is the actual angle is 120 minus theta. Agreed? Rahid?
Yes, 120 minus theta.
120 minus
Yes.
theta. Okay. So if this is FBD, that is FB cosine 120 minus theta. What should be FBQ? FBQ should be FB simply sine of 120 minus theta, right? Okay. Understood?
Sir,
Here is the problem.
yeah. Yes, sir.
No problem. You have a phasor, you have a vector, you want to calculate the components. Forget about this 120 minus theta. Just say this is theta. What should be FBD? FB cosine theta. Okay. What is FBQ?
Cosine.
FB sine theta. If this is cosine theta,
Sine theta,
that
yes,
should
sir.
be sine theta. So this is what I am writing. I've simply changed the angle from theta to 120 minus theta is. Okay. So FBQ is the sine component of whatever angle you have taken here.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay,
Okay.
sir, I got it, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, okay, okay.
So let's move on. Let's move on. So, okay, so we talked about the assignment. Now we move forward. Okay, so what would the LSS look like? Finally, the LSS would look like this LAA 0 plus LAP cosine 2 theta s. This is your LAA, capital LAA. So the final expression is actually given for you for your assignment. Whatever you finally should get is this LBB, and this is LCC. This is LAB, that is already done, and this is LAC, and this one is LBC. Okay, and they are same, symmetrical. So we see that they are symmetrical, this one and this one. Even if you calculate them, okay, if you just want to cross check, if you go for calculating LAB having known LBA, you should end up with the same expression. Okay, even if you calculate it, and if your calculation is correct, then you should get that, well, LAB is same as LBA, LAC is same as LCA, and so on. So for your assignment, the answer key is given. You should get LBB equal to this, LCC equals to this, and LBC equals to this. So these are the answer keys. Try to get them. Okay. So this is your stator to stator inductance matrix. Next, we look into the stator to rotor inductance matrix. It is quite straightforward, so that's why I will try to finish it in this class. Okay, it's quite straightforward. Let me reduce it a little bit, 90%. Yeah. Okay, so stator to rotor mutual inductance. So how does it look like? What is the first element? Let's go back and check the big matrix here. This is the stator to rotor LSR matrix. LSR is stator to rotor. The first element is LAFD, means it is the mutual inductance between the A coil and the field coil. So what is the, how would you calculate it? LSR, so LAFD cosine theta s. So it is the mutual inductance between whom? The A axis
And field coil.
and the field coil. The A axis and the field coil. Okay. Now, what do you think? What would be the expression? What is the angular relation between them? The first thing is they find out the angular relation. These are straightforward. This is not so difficult like the stator to stator inductance. Okay, that is the most complex part of inductance calculation in this lecture. The remaining part is very straightforward. So LSR, you see the FD and A axis, they are related by theta s. As even if the rotor changes its position, of course you can relate them. You can relate their distance with the help of theta s all the time, right? That means even if the rotor is here, even if the d axis is somewhere here, still the relation or the distance, angular distance between d axis and a axis will remain theta s, of course with some increased value. So the mutual inductance will remain as a function of theta, and because they are related by the cosine component, okay, they can relate it by the cosine component, because FD, if you take the component along a axis of FD flux, so you get cosine component, right? That means your FD is along this line. You are looking for the flux MMF and whatever you calculated earlier along the a-axis. What is the relation? The relation is simply this theta s. So your inductance would be LAFD, some peak value multiplied by cosine of that angle. Okay. What about L? What was that? Let's go back. This is L. What's the big matrix? LA1D. What would be LA1D?
Phase angle same.
Same, because 1D and FD, their MMF will be along the same line. Their MMF will be along the same line. So LA1D cosine of theta s. What would be LA1Q? What is the angle between 1Q and A axis? It is 90 plus theta s, right? So you can write LA1Q cosine 90 plus theta s, right? So it would be simply LA1Q. Because of cosine 90 plus theta, it would be simply minus sine theta. Got it? This LA1Q, if you bring it along the a-axis, you will get this relation. What about 2Q? Same thing. LA2Q minus LA2Q sine theta. Okay. What about LBFD? Between B and between B axis and FD coil, FD axis and B axis, whatever you say. What is the angle between them? B axis and FD axis. Let's see. So this is the B axis. This is the FD axis. This is the angle, right?
Yes, sir.
How much is this? Theta is minus 120 or 120 minus theta. Okay. So if you take cosine, it doesn't matter. Theta is minus 120 or 120 minus theta, all the same. The actual angle here in this diagram is 120 minus theta. But as I said, as we said earlier, we are interested in theta s minus 120. So we keep it as theta s minus 120, and LBFD would be simply cosine of that. LB1D, same, because 1D and FD are along the same direction. LB1Q, you have to go for this angle, right? So by now you should know why there is minus and why there is theta s minus 120, right? Between B and 1Q. So if this is cosine component, this should be sine component of the same angle 120 minus theta s. Because we are interested in theta s minus 120, that's why, and it is a sine. So because of that sine trigonometry, there is a minus sign while you are trying to change the angle here from 120 minus theta s to theta s minus 120. Then what is LB2Q? Same, because 1Q and 2Q are along the same line. So in similar way, you can find the remaining entries. Okay, I'm not going to that. Similar way. Okay, just take the first one. CFD. What should be CFD? Because every time we are ignoring the C axis, we are leaving it for you. It's not good. It's a balanced world. So let's take C axis. Equal priority. How much is this angle? between FD and C axis. Oh, sorry, between, yeah, C and FD, C and FD. So where is C? This is C. Where is FD? This is FD. How much is this angle?
180.
Oh, no.
120 plus theta s.
Yeah, you can look in this way. 120 plus theta s.
All right.
Never 180. Okay. Never 180. Yeah, it would be 180, of course, when theta has become 60 degree, but not in general. Okay. It would become 180, but it is one specific case. But in general cases, 120 plus theta s. That is the generalized representation. So LCFD is cosine of theta s plus 120, and the remaining C1D, because 1D and FD are along the same line, so it would be 120 plus theta s. Similarly, 1Q, you can calculate the sine components respectively. So that's it for this 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 entries. And then we call LAFD, LBFD, and LCFD equal, and we call them LSFD, where S is the representation of stator, because A coil, B coil, and C coil, they are common. They are from the stator side. So we take them, the peak value, we take the similar representation, similar notation, LSFD. LA1D, LB1D, LC1D, again, we call it LS1D, and similarly the other two. LS, oh, there is a little mistake. It should be 1Q, should be, I have to correct it. Okay, these are little mistakes, notational typo mistakes. I have to correct it. Okay. So this should be LA2Q equals to LB2Q equals to LC2Q equal to LS2Q. Okay. Done. Any question? It's straightforward.
No, sir.
Question. The last one is, okay, not the last one. So whatever we said, we have just included all those elements that we calculated, all those expression inside the LSR matrix. Now, once you know LSR, what would be LRS? What is the meaning of LSR? You are standing in the stator circuit and you are looking into the rotor and you are trying to calculate the mutual inductance. Okay. What is LRS? In this case, you are standing on the rotor and you are looking into the stator circuits and you are trying to calculate the mutual inductance. Should they be same?
Yes, sir.
They should be same. So once you are done with the big matrix LSR, that is stator to rotor, you are also done with rotor to stator, this one. We're running out of time actually, so let me conclude it very quickly. The last part, the last one is this. The rotor inductance matrix is very straightforward. Simply we call it LRR. LRR, rotor to rotor. So the first element is FD. That means it will give you the inductances between the 4 rotor coils. Okay, so it would be a 4x4 matrix. You have 4 coils. One is FD, one is 1D, and another one is 1Q, another one is 2Q. So of course you will have FD, FD1D. Then what is this? This should have been FD1Q. Why is it 0? Because it is between D axis and Q axis and they are aligned at 90 degree. Okay. They are aligned at 90 degree always, D and Q axis, so they don't have any mutual inductance. Similarly, LFD2Q, they will have 0 entries. And the remaining entries which are 0, they follow the same explanation. So, and this one is between the Q axis, 1Q. This is the self-inductance for the 1Q coil. This is the self-inductance for the 2Q coil. And this is the mutual between 1Q and 2Q, which should be the same as 2Q, 1Q. So the rotor inductance matrix, you don't see any theta dependency. The rotor inductance matrix, you don't see any theta dependency. Okay. And we will conclude here today because we are already over time by 6 minutes. Okay, so what we have done today, actually, we have gone through the inductance calculations. We have seen the derivations, how we can derive them. We have seen the stator to stator inductance calculation They are mutual one, they are self one. We have seen the rotor to stator mutual or stator to rotor mutual inductance. And finally, we have done the rotor inductance calculation, LRR calculation matrix. So that means we are done actually with these elements, okay? What we have done today is simply we have found the expressions, corresponding expressions for these entries in equation number 3. We are done with LSS, we are done with LSR, we are done with LRS, because as I said, LRS should be the same as LSR, and we are done with LRR. So that means now we know all this. Okay, now we know all the other expressions. So from here on, we will move forward, inshallah, in the next class, and we will see where we go. Okay. And I will post the assignment also in the Google Classroom, so don't worry. If you didn't get it, I will also post it with the deadline, okay, in a formal way in the Google Classroom. Okay, so thank you again for attending the lecture. See you soon, inshallah, on next Tuesday. Till then.
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.